Today, we turn from the high banks of Daytona to the fast and fearsome Las Vegas International Raceway. Welcome, everyone. My name is DJ Clark. Alongside me in the booth is Jack Oliphant, and we changed things out a little bit. Gone are going to be the bump drafts and the multi-wide pack racing that we've seen for the past 2 weeks, and today it's a little bit more of NASCAR getting back to its bread and butter on a 1.5-mile oval. Jack, this is going to be a little bit of a great equalizer, I think, and certainly a different change from what we've seen the past 2 weeks.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, if you look at Daytona and you look at Las Vegas on a track map from 100 miles above or whatever, you actually think they look fairly similar. They're both tri-ovals anyway. However, like you mentioned, it's going to be a little bit more single file. It's going to be a little bit more abrasive on the tyres. The tactics might have to come into it a little bit more. And obviously, it's not a super speedway. So it'll have to be a little bit more about the sort of driver skill and actually getting around the track in the fastest amount of time. So, I mean, you'll know better than me, DJ, about obviously the ins and outs of driving in NASCAR. But I'm very excited to get into these sort of, as you said, classic style NASCAR events rather than the super speedways, because I think it adds a little bit extra. It creates a little bit more of a headache for some drivers. And to be honest, if it's a headache, then it's entertainment.
Exactly, and with track temperatures being a little bit on the toasty side around here, things are going to be very interesting. About 20 degrees Celsius out on track, 102 degrees Fahrenheit. That means that this track is going to be very, very slippery, and we're going to have to watch out for drivers getting a little bit squirrely coming out of 2 and 4 in particular. This is a very, very smooth track all the way around, but it certainly is one of those tracks that is going to keep you on your toes. That transfer off of the banking can definitely throw the rear end out a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw a couple of times at Daytona where I think a few drivers, even at Daytona, which obviously is very quick, and the banking sort of is not that massive, even though it's still quite steep. It's so a few people sort of get caught out, and the rear end getting a little bit loose as the gradient changed. As a few incidents, a few too many incidents really last week. Hopefully we get a little bit more calmness. Everybody's learned a lesson or two. And hopefully everybody's done a little bit more practice, because they probably realise that NASCAR isn't just about turning left constantly.
No, it certainly is not. And while we mentioned that you're not going to have that sort of strategic bump drafting and pack racing like we saw in Daytona, certainly timing the draft is going to be absolutely crucial here. Watch for drivers maybe to back themselves off a little bit, coming on the straightaways to line up the run into that corners. And the other thing to keep in mind is, with track temperatures as toasty as they are, look for some drivers to pop out of line a little bit. Try to keep those engines cool, as it is a real possibility that drivers could get some overheating engines and potentially see those motors blow over the course of today's event.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, again, just another thing these drivers are going to have to think about. If they're running in the pack for so long, you might see them dive to the outside. That's not necessarily to overtake, although it might be. So we might get overly excited, and then they just creep back into where they were before, and all of a sudden you realise that they are cooling things down just a touch. Tyres obviously might be a little bit of a factor. Now, DJ, you weren't here last week. but I can reliably inform you that, as I mentioned before, a few too many pace car situations, caution periods, I suppose you would probably call them. Mainly, that meant that we didn't get that many green flag pit stops, which is a bit of a shame. Something we'd like to see a little bit more of, because we haven't really delved into the psychology and the tactics of NASCAR yet, because, well, the caution period comes out and everybody just decides to dive to the pit. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that, hopefully, this evening.
Yeah, it'll certainly be something to watch out for as we watch on board with Cerise Fitzpatrick as she pilots her way around out of that turn 2. You could see that car getting a little bit sideways coming out of the corner. And to your point about those pit stops, it is going to be very, very crucial. And only a mile and a half around here, if you come down pit lane, it certainly is going to be something very, very important. You can go a lap, maybe 2 laps down as they go around. Now, as we watch here qualifying taking place, it is open qualifying for today, and that's going to change things up a little bit. You're going to be able to pick up a lot of speed coming through the draft, and, well, it's going to be, frankly, a little bit more of a representative race pace than we would normally see.
Yeah, and I actually just had to ask in the broadcast chat on the Discord, have we changed from solo qualifying? Because it did surprise me a touch then. But you're right, this should give us an opportunity to see a little bit more race pace. It will give opportunity for drivers who are sort of working in a team as well to work together, which again is another aspect that we don't normally talk about in qualifying in NASCAR and iRacing, because it is normally done just completely solo. So yeah, that's a bit interesting. So we're expecting to see a few cars running together, try and slingshot each other, try and get that slipstream. But ironically, from the shots that we're seeing right now, brought to us by Dave Christie, it's not really happening just yet, is it? We seem to be seeing a lot of solo running, even though, you know, there's that opportunity to probably gain 2/10, if not more, over a course of a lap.
Indeed, I think some drivers may be a little bit worried about catching too much of the dirty air through the corners. Obviously, tighter turns around here at Las Vegas, so we'll have to see how that plays out. But as we continue to watch qualifying, about 4 minutes left to go. Want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors for the day, Absolute Sim Racing, as well as Go for the Grid. We would not be able to put on this WSL European NASCAR event without them, so a massive, massive thank you to our sponsors here on the day.
Yeah, for sure. And they've donated some pretty wicked prizes as well, haven't they? As SIM3D, they've supplied P1 in the championship, so whoever wins the overall championship, they'll get a SIM3D rumble kit with 2-seat rumble motors as well. So it'll add that little bit extra sort of realism for your pedals. Obviously, if you've got load cells, and that helps, but these rumble kits are sort of the next step up, where you can feel when the brake is about to break away and lock up the pedals, and when you go over curves, about how the throttle might shake a little bit. And obviously in your seat, if you go over curves, the rumble motor will obviously throw that sensation through your backside, put it that way. P2, they've also given a SIM3D LED gearbox indicator. This is basically a panel of LEDs, which will tell you when to shift up or what gear you're in, but it'll also tell you other things, like if you're coming to a yellow flag period, you can program it so it flashes up yellow, or you need to pit stop, it'll count down for your pit stops. You can basically program it to display anything. Really useful bit of kit, I would say. And lastly, if you're in 3rd position overall, so your final step on the podium in the championship, you get a SIM3D button box, which is a pretty cool piece of kit as well. It's basically a box of hotkeys, which will help drivers potentially throw settings around in their car throughout the race. Obviously, a lot of drivers have a lot of buttons on their steering wheel already. Well, this box is basically an extension of that. So if you're going into the pits and you don't want to change tyres or anything like that, you can always program the button box to say toggle whether you want tyres or not going in, which I think a few people got a little bit caught out last week here at the NASCAR. So that prize might help a few people. I know it would help me, because I'm constantly forgetting to untick the tyre change option.
Yeah, as am I. And as we tick down here with almost about 2 minutes left to go in qualifying, just wanted to run it through our top 5 right now. It is Isaac Rain, Loris Muller, Mark Redford, Kevin Stam, and Cerise Fitzpatrick rounding out your top 5 right now. This is a track that is relatively easy to get past on, though, so I'm not necessarily as concerned about qualifying position as Sean Campbell, able to bump his way up into 4th. Mark Redford able to get that double 7 machine up into P2. Times continuing to fall a little bit here.
Yeah, and I suppose that's maybe people getting used to the track. Maybe the track's rubbering it as well. I don't think the it passes over from practice, the track state, sorry. I don't think it carries over from practice into qualifying. So maybe just the fact that the track is getting a little bit quicker. Maybe it's getting a little bit warmer out there on the surface of the asphalt, and maybe a few drivers are starting to work together a little bit more. They're playing around with what's quicker, whether it's quicker to be in the draft, whether it's quicker to be out of the dirty air. We're not entirely sure. So, yeah, there's always opportunity to improve your times in this late stage of qualifying, and a lot of people will want to save their flying laps right until the end.
Yeah, exactly. You definitely want to try to get that in as much as possible. Try to space everything out a little bit, but only 50 seconds left to go before we get turned loose. We're on a 100-lap race here around Las Vegas. Track temperature's cooling just a little bit. This could be the opening the drivers are looking for. Oh, there's a big kerfluffle there in behind, somebody going hard into the wall.
Yeah, which is obviously always a danger. Now, in qualifying, that won't bring out the yellow or caution period because this is live stewarding. We haven't left it up to iRacing to decide when's going to be a caution period or anything. Not that it would be in qualifying anyway, but that's also one of the big advantages of the WSL NASCAR leagues, and the fact that obviously they get to decide when to put the caution periods out. So if one or two cars fly off the circuit, but they're nowhere near anybody, then we won't go into a caution period. Whereas if we left it to iRacing and two drivers go off the circuit, whether they're near anybody or not, we'd go into caution. So brilliant work by WSL to have this sort of established sort of live stewarding here helping us tonight.
Yeah, indeed, and that will be certainly a big boon today. Obviously, as we've seen in the past, a good mix of European and American drivers taking place as the checkered flag flies for qualifying. Looks like Isaac Rain still going to be P1, not able to get anybody to pip him out. Kevin Stam coming to a stop in the backstretch right now, so looks like that could just wrap about qualifying. And that is going to bring us to the starting grid for today. As we said earlier, it will be Isaac Rain there at the top of the charts in that number 63 machine. Kevin Stam will be starting to his outside. It's going to be Mark Redford in P3, followed by Loris Mueller, with Cerise Fitzpatrick starting off in P5 and Sean Campbell to her outside. Behind them, it's Daniel Valk, followed by Brandon Hughes, with Matthew Heatrick and Brody Menard rounding out your top 10. Jonathan Habe will be in 11th, followed by Rich Matthews. Marcellus Bruning will be 13th with Artie Bouchard in 14th. Gerard Wareham will be 15th, followed by Judith Cooper in 16th. And behind her, it'll be Dion Neumveld with Mark Cadmore and Harry Willis. Ben Smith, Dean Timms, and Robbie Power rounds out your 22-car field here for today. We will have about 2 laps of pacing, and that's going to be crucial, even though it still is very toasty. 95 degrees Fahrenheit out on track right now. You'll have to forgive me. I don't have that conversion to Celsius dialed in my head. It's but you do want to get these tires up to temperature as much as possible. You do not want to be starting this race off with cool tires for multiple reasons. One, coming into the corner, you're going to lose a little bit grip. You're going to wash up out on the track a little bit. And number 2, you can deal with that ever terrifying tire spin that you can get off of the line. Not what you want to be doing there. You can see those conversions over into Celsius on your screen. Only 22% humidity out in the air. That is good news for them. Wind about 7 miles an hour coming out right now, so that's not going to be too much of a problem as well. As drivers work their way out, you can see that weaving taking place there. The 63 of Isaac Rain really doing a good job to try to get those tires in and try to get everything nice and good.
Yeah, he'll be working hard, I'm sure, as will everybody else, obviously chasing behind, because the start is always an opportunity to just make your way into the lead, to get an advantage of the driver next to you, even whether you're at the front or whether you're at the back of the field. So I'm sure everybody will be trying to get their tyres, get their car especially up to optimum temperature for the start of this race. Because as you said, we're not going to be seeing 2x2 massive well, 2x2 running basically, massive trains either side. It will be a case of people want to get on that inside, want to get on the optimum racing line early to try and push forward and sort of get themselves established in this race early on.
Indeed, they will, as lights are out on the iRacing sedan. So we're only going to have one lap here before we let loose these NASCAR next-gen machines. Isaac Rain leading the cars to the field. Pace truck has scampered off and waiting for that flag to fly. There goes the green. We are racing in Las Vegas. Isaac Rain gets a very, very good start directly off of the line. He's going to start to pull ahead there a little bit. Kevin Stam working his way forward. I see Redford and Muller trying to line in behind. Cerise Fitzpatrick looking like she lost out just a little bit on that opening run. Sean Campbell able to get that number 26 up ahead of her.
We're already starting to see a little bit of a gap, well, a lot more gap than we saw at Daytona, obviously. So it's interesting to see how everybody's sort of filing themselves out. We haven't gone single file straight away, have we? We are getting a little bit spread out as everybody tries to find their feet early on in this race. We're looking back from Isaac Rain, obviously leading the race. We're seeing Stam, and then we're seeing Redford and Muller going side by side. Stam just trying his best to pull away with Rain at the moment. Redford and Muller on the left-hand side of our screen, on that timing tower, just keep swapping up and down, and look at it, that's why.
Indeed it is. That's going to be Muller able to hold on to that second place position, or third place position rather, but he's going to stick it up on the high side, leave the door a little bit open there for Mark Redford up at the front. It looks like Kevin Stam starting to build a little bit of speed as they exit out the corner, and here comes Sean Campbell looking a little bit interested on that number 77 of Mark Redford, trying to run a little bit on the high line here. You can see about a 3-groove track as things start to develop out. Some good runs there off the backside. We ride on board with Mark Redford right now in fourth place position, looking down to the inside of the 68 of Muller.
Indeed, yeah, it's a fantastic view, that, isn't it? And it looks like we've got another car coming in, the number 26. Now, unfortunately, I can't quite read who the number 26. Oh, it's Campbell, isn't it? Campbell coming up on the high line and getting a really good run on Redford here, actually. Redford on that low line, just getting that inside track. But Campbell's not to be messed with. Obviously, he won the media day 2 weeks ago, so he's certainly used to running at this front end as we got our first caution of the day.
Indeed, I'm seeing Harry Willis and Marcellus Bruning dropping down through the field, so I think that may be the reason for our first caution. A couple of cars involved there with that. Looks like a little bit of a kerfluffle coming out of turn 2, potentially.
Yeah, kerfluffle's a brilliant word, isn't it? We'll have to get a quick replay of that, and again, I'm just struggling to see it, so if you could take us through it, DJ.
Well, it looks like everything's nice and clean coming out of the corner there, so we're going to take you back a full lap here. You see that little triangle of drivers working their way around. That's the 61 of Bruning up on the high side in that yellow machine, as he's going to be involved in this here, coming down into 1 and 2, dives it down, and looks like we're going to have to wait a little bit later here for that incident. Here it is, as Bruning, oh, that car just looked like it walked away from him. A little bit of snap oversteer coming through the corner. That's not exactly what you normally see in these NASCAR next-gen machines with the higher downforce levels.
No, it just, yeah, there we go, just absolutely flew away, and I wouldn't even say that was major error in terms of driver input. There was obviously no contact. Very, very strange, that one, DJ, and obviously Marcellus Bruning now goes back to the pits. So, yeah, unfortunately, our first caution period of the day, but we got 5 laps of running there, didn't we? And what we saw was a little bit of an indication that maybe the top 4 or 5, probably the top 5 or 6 really, actually, can establish a bit of a breakaway. They are separating to packs a lot easier than what we saw at Daytona for the last 2 weeks. And I suppose that is what you were saying earlier, DJ, isn't it? The fact that you are unlikely to see racing that we have seen in the past 2 weeks. But realistically, what everybody's desperate to try and do now then is attach themselves onto those top 5 or 6. Because if you're not in that group, you don't stand much of a chance. These caution periods will always allow someone to reset that and give it another go.
Yeah, and I think the person who's most going to be looking for that reset here is Cerise Fitzpatrick back in 6th place. We saw her lose a little bit of touch with the drivers up ahead, that leading pack of about 5 cars starting to pull away a little bit more, and she was losing the pace a little bit. So good for her on this. This could be a good chance to be able to get back into the mix. We will restart double file as always, and so that will certainly be a bit of a change to everything.
Yeah, and I suppose it's what we saw. Well, it's basically a full race restart. It does allow a few people who didn't have the best of starts to sort of have that extra go. Unfortunately, for the likes of Bruning and Robbie Power, it's not going to give them much of an opportunity unless they have a fast repair. But Bruning has been in the pits for so long, I'm not entirely sure what he's doing in there, what they're doing in there. Oh, no, he is. No, that's Rich Matthews, actually. So, yeah, I don't know whether Marcelo's Bruning is actually just disconnected. Maybe there was a hardware error that was the reason why we saw Bruning actually fly into the wall, and it did look a bit unusual.
Yeah, indeed. And I think that may be it. I mean, that sudden jink to the left there like that, a little bit surprising. And so that certainly could be a little bit of an explanation. But we are back. We are double wide and ready to go racing once again here at Las Vegas. It will be Isaac Rain down to the inside, Kevin Stam to his outside, Muller, Campbell, Redford, and Fitzpatrick making up your top six, your first three rows as they get themselves set and ready to go. That's Rain really focused on warming up those tires. Track temperature has raised a couple of degrees Fahrenheit. It's up to 97 right now, so still a little bit toasty out on track. But the toastiness here is what is going to have to be ready to get going. As I lied, their lights are... No, there goes the pace truck as it pulls off down to the inside. Another mega restart there for Isaac Rain. He's going to pull away a little bit there. It looks like Loris Muller's going to try to follow him through on the inside. Sean Campbell debating which line to take there. Looks like they're leaving a little bit of a gap back to Redford and Fitzpatrick, but they're going to be side by side for P2 between Muller and Stam.
Rain has absolutely flown away, hasn't he? And unlike Daytona, this might actually stick for a couple of laps. He might get a bit of breathing room. However, Stam and Muller, they haven't got any kind of breathing room because they've got Campbell breathing down their neck as well and go three wide. You said it couldn't be done, DJ. They might well prove you wrong. They might well prove you right. Either way, they're going to prove something at this point because Muller on the inside, four wide might be a touch ambitious. And no, they go 2 by 2 as we shout hurrah, hurrah in the commentary box. Stam and Muller still going at it on the outside as Muller still allowing that open door. It's for Campbell to come up the inside, and Redford's involved as well. Looks like the top six yet again are the drivers that are pulled away. Fitzpatrick is just in the back of this little queue.
Yeah, I like what Fitzpatrick is doing here. She's just kind of taking her time, waiting for everything to play out in front of her. Ooh, little bit of a wide run up the track there for Isaac Rain, but able to gather it up back under him. This battle that we're seeing develop up now between Campbell and Stam, as we've got a great view of it here through Suisse Fitzpatrick's front windshield. I think it's costing them time. It's really not helping them out. They need to run in a little bit more single file here and try to get themselves up to catch Isaac Rain.
Isaac Rain is helping him out, though, isn't it? And actually, look at Muller. Now he's gotten away from that little battle with Campbell and Redford. All of a sudden, he's pulling sort of streets as we've seen a big crash again. And that could be the second caution. I think we are under yellow, and there we go. We're under caution. And who is that? It's Mark Redford, actually. It's right at the front. I didn't realise how close to the front. It was Kevin Stam and Mark Redford. Apologies about that, DJ. I missed that one at the time.
Oh, and it was those two drivers that we were talking about battling so hard and losing themselves time, and now they have completely lost themselves out here with some big damage coming out of the exit of turn 4.
Yeah, Redford's definitely going to have to come in, but look at that. They've just gone back the pits, past the pit lane, which means they can't go in. They have to do an entire lap before they get in, which I suppose everybody else's will be under pace car. It's not the end of the world, but it equally is not ideal, is it? Because they're going to have to waste a little bit of time. Now, we're going to see it again here. One on the high line, that's Mark Redford, isn't it? With Stam on the inside. And does Redford just touch the outside wall? Does he just get a little bit loose? Yeah, there we go. Instantly just touched the outside wall. And while we were on board with Fitzpatrick, actually, we saw her having to just lift off the throttle a lot more than anything we saw at Daytona, which just goes to show that there is sort of more of an element of driver's skill around this circuit, and you have to be a little bit more careful. Maybe not driver skill, maybe that's the wrong terminology, but you do have to be a bit more careful with throttle application, which can separate the best drivers from maybe the sort of slightly reckless, slightly inconsistent drivers.
Indeed, and we ride on board with Fitzpatrick, who had the bird's eye view to that situation. Whoa! Perfect threading of the needle there for Cerise to be able to make that all nice and clean. She's going to find herself now up into 4th place, and that's one of the things that we talk about every now and again in a NASCAR series such as this, is accident avoidance absolutely crucial. If you are able to get through an incident unscathed, you are going to be able to find your way further up in the field.
And we're a lot more likely to see drivers actually make their way through crashes undeterred than we were at Daytona. Obviously, everybody always goes on about the big one at Daytona, don't they? And we're less likely to see that. As the cars get strung out, you have more time to react. The cars don't pinball into each other quite so much, which is what we like to see, because we want to see as many people running as high up as possible, obviously, for that lead pack. But what we do see, obviously, is when the move is attempted to be made, it's a little bit more difficult than it is at Daytona. You're not just using slipstream, you're also using full throttle application. The tyres have got to be in a good place. Obviously, the wind resistance and the aerodynamics, you have to be aware of how it feels to be behind a driver, and then the difference it will be when you pull out to overtake them, because you are hit with a wall of air when you're going at 200 miles an hour, and it does make the car react very differently when you're actually under turning and under throttle and all these sorts of things. So that's why we're seeing a few drivers maybe making slight mistakes, ending up in the wall, because that was only a tiny mistake, wasn't it, DJ, that Redford made? But it was enough, obviously, to not ruin his race, but it certainly put a bit of a damper on it early doors.
Yeah, indeed. He finds himself all the way back down into 16th place right now, so he'll certainly have some work to do. But we have seen passing be possible around here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, so certainly some ability to be able to try to get himself forward. But thus far, the story of this race really has been Isaac Rain. He has been the class of the field, from being able to get the good jump on the restarts to just running that 63 car to perfection. It really looks like he has got this field's number.
Yeah, when it rains, it pours, you know what they say, and he's absolutely soaking the rest of the opposition right now. Every single time he's had the opportunity, he's pulled away with a plum. He's been pretty much perfect. He's going to have to do it again now, though, as everybody else gets an opportunity to answer back, shall we say, as the pace car will probably have their lights off at the end of this lap. So fingers crossed we'll get back going. Fingers crossed from a spectator's point of view. We have a nice, exciting restart. We have a nice, clean restart, though, most of all. And from Isaac Rain's perspective, he just needs to do exactly the same that he's done before. Will Muller have learnt?
Exactly, and this is going to be the first time we've seen Muller up into the outside there, so that is going to be very, very crucial for him to make sure he can try to capitalize on it. Campbell and Fitzpatrick, Maynard and Valk, now your front three rows as we get ready to restart. Again, Isaac Rain warming up those tires, trying to get as much heat into them as possible. That's going to help him to minimize a tire spin coming off of the line. So much horsepower, so much torque generated by these NASCAR next-gen cars, and even with the increased downforce in the back of the car with that diffuser, when you are at low temperatures, it's not really or low speeds rather, not really working as much as you'd expect. So you've got to make sure that those tires are as grippy as possible and you have as much mechanical grip as you can.
Well, that's exactly it. A lot of these cars, and pretty much any aerodynamics in any form of motorsport, is all obviously based on a lot of air passing over the car, which means you've got to be going quickly. So as they get up to speed, it's not going to find that there's going to be that much grip. But as soon as they're up to whatever it is, 200 miles an hour, 200 kilometers an hour, I can never remember actually which one it is, it's going to be all of a sudden very effective, but only when there's air to pass underneath it. So if they're in a traffic and if they're following each other nose to tail, you're going to have a lot less aerodynamic ability than if you follow each other a couple of car lengths back, as Isaac Rain already goes. But look at that, Muller has learnt. Now, Campbell and the rest of them didn't get a nice jump there, so Rain and Muller really pull away. They went quite early as we go back racing for the third time, as Campbell sits in third position, Fitzpatrick in fourth, but not to be competitive, but is very competitive with Maynard by the looks of it. Maynard into fourth position as Fitzpatrick slips down to fifth, Velk into sixth, Hughes in seventh, Hatrick is in eighth with Havey in ninth, and the top 10 rounded out by Boschard. But the story is the same as it was before, DJ, and it's that Isaac Rain leads this race.
Indeed, he does, really working that car around here. And then another thing that we need to keep in mind here is for some drivers that may not be pushing as far as they can ahead, we could be worried about tire wear as well, as we focus back in the pack a little bit here on Judith Cooper, currently running in 12th, running that super high line there for Judith, and that's going to be helpful for her on a couple of different fronts. Number one, it is going to carry more momentum out of the corners. You're able to keep your speeds up higher. You don't have nearly as much tire scrub. And then number two, hopefully that will help with that tire wear. If you're down hugging that white line all the way throughout the lap, that means that you're going to be scrubbing those tires a little bit more. Jumping back up, we've got a nice little battle here. This is Ben Smith and Jonathan Havey as they fight their way into turn one.
Yeah, indeed they do. There's a little bit of movement at a little bit further forward, but not too massively. So, actually, if you look right for the lead of the race, it's a three-way battle between Rain, Muller, and Campbell, isn't there? Campbell's gotten himself in on this action all of a sudden, and obviously championship leader at the moment is Campbell, as he overtakes Muller on the inside over the start-finish line.
Indeed, he does. It looks like Sean Campbell here definitely on a little bit of a mission, using that low line. You see the car drift up a little bit, screaming out for grip coming out of turn 2. And now...
Sorry, go for it, DJ.
I was going to say, and now as he comes up out of the corner, just going to tuck up behind in that draft of Isaac Rain. This is about as close as we've seen anybody be able to get to Isaac since the drop of the green flag.
Yeah, just over a tenth of a second, but if you look at that left-hand side, it's coming down, but you don't really need to look at the left-hand side all the times because you can physically see it in front of you. Look at Campbell, and look at that switch from the car as he goes on the high line. There's the difference in grip. That's the difference that we didn't see in Daytona, isn't it? As Muller passes back up the inside. So Campbell trying to be aggressive, trying to go for that high line, trying to carry the momentum that DJ was talking about earlier, but it's not that easy. It is nowhere near as easy as just turning left. Isaac Rain's doing a brilliant job here at leading this race, but this is the first time we've seen him under threat. 20 laps into this 100-lap race around Las Vegas.
Indeed, and Campbell getting that good run around the outside there. You can see that increased momentum coming up out of turn 2. A little bit of a pinch down on Isaac Rain. That was a good move there to try to blunt Rain coming up around him. And indeed, Sean Campbell's going to go back into the lead right here. He is going to keep running on that high side. That working out incredibly well for the number 26, but Rain trying to fight back a little bit. But he's got to be watching in his rearview mirrors because Loris Muller looking very, very aggressive.
Muller is looking very interested, but he's looked interested all race and hasn't really been able to pull the trigger, has he? Unlike Campbell. Like I said, Campbell is leading this championship. He's done a very good job at Daytona, and he seems to have nailed the outside line, this high line, hasn't he? You said that you can carry a little bit more speed. You said that you can also not wear the tyres out as quickly. Looks like he's keeping it a little bit more pinned, even as he comes out of the corner, even as he goes in, which you would expect that Rain would have an advantage. So this is going to be very interesting to see whether Rain and Muller actually change their tactics, change their lines through this race to react to what Campbell's doing. Because look at that, even though on entry into the corner, Rain is able to gain an advantage, when they come out of it, Campbell will be carrying those extra 1 or 2 miles an hour extra speed on Rain, which allows him to really push around the outside. Rain looks like he's getting a little bit braver though. He's trying to push the speed through the tyres. They'll wear them out quicker, but again, coming off the corner, Campbell just reigns supreme.
He does indeed, but on that last lap, it did look like Sean Campbell was a wee bit squirrely coming up on that high line. Let's watch him again as they come through 1 and 2. Looks like he's a little bit better as the throttle application comes down, and it looks like Loris Muller now taking a leap out of Sean Campbell's book. He's going to power around to the outside there and move himself up into second. They're going to be too wide coming down through 3 and 4, but I think Muller is going to be able to carry that momentum around behind them. Brony Menard loving what he is seeing as he is going to be able to close in a little bit more. He's got that gap under 0.6 of a second. Isaac Rain looking to be in a little bit of trouble here early on.
So often in motorsport, it's those who are adapting. Oh, as Campbell twitches on the high line, that might be harder than we think actually to drive around. Maybe why Muller's going a little bit of a hybrid of the middle line almost. But so often in motorsport, we say and we see that it's a fact that whoever adapts first, whoever adapts quickest is the one who actually ends up winning the race and winning the championship. It can be said on a wet to drying line. It could be set for a drying to wet line. It could also be said to when a driver has got a little bit of a quicker idea and a quicker tactic and a quicker line than you do. Who can adopt that? Who can adapt to basically mimic, if not better, that line? And Muller is doing exactly that. Rain couldn't seem to handle it. He didn't want to change what he was doing. He's still diving towards that white line on the inside, whereas Muller was happy to try and take a leaf out of Campbell's book and run a little bit higher, run a little bit more speed, and almost he's doing it a little bit better, I would say, as well, because he's in the middle of that track. So he's got a bit of best of both worlds, but obviously Campbell at the moment is still winning.
We focus here on the 5th place machine. Mark Redford leading a little bit of a train of Brandon Hughes and Cerise Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick dropping down the order a little bit. Again, they're out of that number 77 of Mark Redford, seeing a little bit of a wiggle coming through the corner as we've got a battle for the lead. Loris Muller now going down to the inside of Sean Campbell through 3 and 4, trying to see if he can make that line work. A little bit of a slider there, but they both back off of it. Not going to have any major problems there. They're going to cross over the line nearly neck and neck. It's going to be Campbell to the high side, Muller down to the inside. Let's see who's able to get it. I think the best approach here, and it looked like, thinking about it for a second, there was Loris Muller of throwing a little bit of a slide job on Sean Campbell, but Campbell able to hold on resolutely to that high line.
Yeah, he's absolutely loving it, aren't they? I imagine both of them are. They've probably got massive smiles on their faces. Well, maybe smiles on the inside. I imagine they've got a very focused look actually on their faces, as rain is starting to just pull them back a little bit more, and that's because they're starting to fight, isn't it? Campbell has now gotten that lead established. He's got a 10th.5 gap to Muller, as Rain again looks very quick on the entry, but you'll see the gap just be extended as soon as they come off the corner. But Muller on that slightly hybrid line, on that being in the middle of the road, basically halfway through around the corner, just looks like he's got a little bit of best of both worlds. He's quick on the entry, which means he can line up next to Campbell when he, obviously not on that specific corner, but when he has that momentum. And then on the exit, he loses out just a touch, but nowhere near as much as Isaac Rain. So it's going to be very interesting. It's cat and mouse now, isn't it? As we look a little bit further backwards. So this is Brandon Hughes against Brody Maynard. Mark Redford up ahead of them, who's had a fantastic job of recovering in this race. And obviously Swells Fitzpatrick, that's in 7th position at the moment.
Yeah, and that's Fitzpatrick holding down to that low line. Now she's going to swap back up to come in behind Brody Maynard there. And Maynard losing a little bit of ground here, it has to be said. Cerise able to get down to the inside there in that 7. That's a good move. A little bit of a high-low there going on, harkening back to the days of dirt racing. Or if you are a NASCAR fan, last week's dirt racing at the Bristol Motor Speedway dirt track. A little bit more side-by-side there in the back. That's the 96 of Matthew Heatrick going down to the inside of Daniel Velk as they work their way through 1 and 2. Everything's starting to play itself out a little bit here. We're starting to get the sense of where drivers like to go. And you talked about reading that track earlier. You know, one of the things that you have to read is where it's rubbering in. iRacing does a fantastic job of mimicking what real tracks do. As you continue to run these Goodyear race tires around here, that rubber will actually sink into the track a little bit and create a little bit more grip. So as the race goes along, you will continue to have more grip on those low and middle lines.
Yeah, and it's amazing, isn't it? Because the hotter the temperature of the track is and the ambient temperature, the hotter the tyres will go, the more rubber that will be put down. And I know that sounds simple because that's what will happen in a race and in real life, but you have no idea how complicated that is to actually mimic in a simulator, down to sort of a very accurate degree of error, I would say. They, like you mentioned, DJ, they do a brilliant job, and it's helping these drivers put into place what they see in real life and actually enable them to go and try and replicate it in the sim world. So a lot of what we're seeing from these drivers will be things that they've picked up from real world NASCAR racing and decided, you know what, that worked for them, maybe that's going to work for me. And they go in, they try it out, and they find, you know what, it works.
Exactly. It's one of the things that does make iRacing one of the absolute best simulators on the market. As we continue to watch that battle, though, between Campbell and Muller, this is your battle for the lead. Muller just kind of poking his nose this way and that. I haven't seen a legitimate attack out of him yet. I'm getting the sense that he's just kind of read his competitor here a little bit, reading Sean Campbell. He knows he doesn't need to make the attack right now. Only 33, 34 laps in the books here, so still plenty of time, and those all-important pit stops that we're going to have to deal with at some point over the course of this race.
That's going to be interesting, actually, because I don't believe we've seen any pit stops from any of our front runners that haven't been forced to be making a pit stop. Like Mark Redford is in 4th place at the moment, but he was forced to make a pit stop thanks to the fact that he left his car halfway round a corner, so he had to come in and he had to get that fast repair. However, everybody else hasn't made a pit at all. 34 laps in. Now, they are only they're limited to 65% of fuel, I believe. So they're going to have to come in and do a fuel stop at some point. It just obviously with every track is slightly different. And look how Redford has reacted after he fell down the order. He's come back charging. He's actually gunning for 3rd position off once the race leader, Isaac Rain. Redford jumps up the inside, and the number 77, who just wants to finish a race apparently. Hometown of Warrington, over in Cheshire. Good on you, good on you, Mark. That's where I come from. Well, sort of near it. I come from Chester, but still, going into 3rd position.
Indeed, going into third position and music to his eyes is going to be Campbell and Muller directly ahead of them, going side by side for the lead. Muller trying to take that line down away from Campbell. Campbell looking like that momentum on the high side, not exactly proving out as much as he would like. The 68 is going to be able to come down low. I think momentum may carry him here around a little bit, as there you can see the 26 just falling back into line, and this is about to become a three-horse race with Mark Redford getting very, very interested. But Sean Campbell maybe having another little look here onto the outside of Loris Muller. He's going to try to pinch that car down, and they're going to have a little bit of lap traffic to deal with in the form of Dean Timms directly ahead of them.
Yeah, Dean is going to have to move it out of the way. Hopefully he goes to the wider line. Although, actually, Sean Campbell's been using the high, wide, and handsome line, hasn't he? He probably won't want to drive on the outside. But there you go. Dean Timms doing exactly what a back marker should do. And again, we saw a few lessons learned, shall we say, at Daytona last week. Here comes Sean Campbell off the corner. He's absolutely flying. He's able to get past Sean Muller, Loris Muller. How long for, though? That's going to be the question as Loris Muller enters the corner. Obviously, a little bit ahead because he's on the inside line, but Campbell has forced him so far on the inside that he's able to get that run on the outside again. Then out of 1 and 2, he's flying here, Sean Campbell. He's just about got that back. Maybe he's turned the wick up just a touch after Loris Muller looked a little bit too close for comfort up his inside.
Yeah, I think indeed he may have, but he's going to have to be a little bit careful. I noticed a little bit of a squirrel there for him coming off of turn 2. That car wanting to walk up the track and into that outside safer barrier. He was able to catch it and pull it back down, but that is something to watch out for as we go along here in this tire stint with these tires wearing down and, more importantly, heating up. What we have seen a lot out of this Goodyear rubber on the iRacing simulator is the fact that wear isn't exactly the biggest key. It is actually tire temperature, but that's not going to matter at all to Loris Muller, who dives down to the inside, trying to see if he can get anything at all, and he is going to bring Mark Redford along with him. They're going to fly in a nice little flying V.
Yeah, exactly. It looks brilliant, doesn't it? As Rain is actually just spectating this. He can't get involved at the moment as Muller gets himself firmly into the lead now. Campbell having to sit in second place as they go round. This tends to be where Campbell's a little bit quicker on that higher line, but I'm just wondering whether his tyres are just overheating a little bit too much. The problem is when you're on that higher line is you don't have as much space to slide into. If you're on that white line, on the sort of inside line, and you have a little bit of a slide, you can sort of get away with it because you'll only go to the middle of the circuit. If you're on the outside line, you have a little bit of a slide. As Mark Redford will tell you, you end up in the wall rather rapidly, and that can sort of put a bit of a dampener in your race for the race lead. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think Campbell's actually adapted, hasn't he, here, DJ? He's starting to go more middle of the circuit rather than really high and wide.
Yeah, indeed. He's almost running a little bit of a crossover line there coming out of 3 and 4, but he's going to tuck up behind in the draft here of Muller coming through turn 1, just poking that car a little bit into the clean air. We talked about overheating. Track temperatures not nearly as severe as we thought.
I thought he was going into the pits, is he?
Maybe. Let's wait and see here. That is a slow lap. Yes, that is going to be coming down pit lane for Loris Muller with about 42, 43 laps in the books. We also just heard a call over the radio that Sean Campbell will also be coming down pit lane.
Yeah, and that's very interesting to see how slow Loris Muller had to go. I mean, he was preparing to come into the pit about 2 corners before, didn't he? And who else is coming in? It's Fitzpatrick and Brandon Hughes as we see Loris Muller potentially getting ready to take some tyres. We'll have to have a look whether the car goes up on jacks. This is Judith Cooper as well. She does take tyres to show that obviously Las Vegas is a little bit harsher on the tyres than Daytona last week. And I think that was both sets that she took just then. There is Isaac Crane coming into the pits and Sean Campbell. So pretty much everybody coming into the pits. Now, is that a reaction from a few of the leading pack, the likes of Loris Muller coming in early, or was that always the plan? That's what I always like to know. Maybe we'll have a chat to a few of the drivers afterwards and find out. But it looks like Mark Redford, well, he's in the lead of the race now. He's the only one who hasn't taken a pit stop. And in fact, he hasn't taken it again. So although, to be fair, what I am forgetting is that Redford obviously had to pit earlier on, DJ. So he probably got that extra bit of fuel in his car. I doubt he would have taken tyres necessarily, but he definitely took a little bit of fuel while he was taking his fast repairs. That's why he's maybe able to just go a little bit longer.
Yeah, indeed. And we're going to have to wait for the other cars to cycle around here to see what that undercut is going to do for the 77. He's currently running times in the 31.8s. The fastest times that we've seen put down, those are about in the 30.18s. So waiting here to see what this is going to look like for the drivers who have taken tires, if they're able to get those tires backed up into temperature a little bit faster. Brody Menard coming down pit lane. That looks like it's pretty much going to be just about everybody who hasn't taken a pit stop. Wills, Matthews, and Stam all waiting out here. They were some of the drivers that were involved in that early incident, so they came down, got their fast repair, and clearly got a little bit of a top-up. So they're going to be able to go for a little bit longer around here, but Redford really having this race all on and to himself. But a good battle right now between Loris Muller and Isaac Rain. This will effectively be that battle for the race lead.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it does go to show a little bit that obviously that pit stop was based on fuel and not tyre degradation, although obviously most people taking tyres because they might as well, since we're pretty much halfway through the race. Here goes Isaac Rain now on the inside of Loris Muller. It's difficult to see from that angle, but as we cut back to the TV cameras, we can see that Isaac Rain is starting to amount a little bit more of a attack as we go into the third caution. And I'm trying to see who. Is it Gerard Wareham, who's potentially in the pit? No, well, he's in the pits, but I'm not entirely sure why. We'll have to have a little bit of a replay here. And, in fact, here is Gerard Wareham. Oh, just comes back down off the lines and has collected quite a few cars, actually. Now, who's that? It's number 96 we've been talking about. Matthew Heatrick is the car that is just going at the bottom of your screen there, unfortunately, as Wareham jumps back to the pit. But, again, that was just a characteristic of the track, sort of surprising a few of these drivers, as Redford looks like he's going very slowly to go into the pit lane, I'm guessing.
I believe he is, and that is going to be absolutely mega for him because the likes of Sean Campbell, Isaac Rain, Loris Muller, those drivers that we were talking about fighting for the lead, they are a lap down. Redford, Wills, Matthews, and Stam, they are the drivers that are on the lead lap right now, so this has completely changed the face of this race.
Yeah, that is, you're absolutely right. That could be huge. We'll have to see it as we're seeing a few of the drivers passing us on the circuit now. We'll keep on board and Mark Redford see where he is. There is Sean Campbell. And as you can see on the left-hand side, normally when people come into the pit and everybody goes past them, we see all the tickers moving over and them overtaking the drivers on the left-hand side. But as you can see, it's not happening at the moment. Redford's still in the lead of this race. He's still in the pit. And I think he's just about to come out. In fact, he is out of the pits now. So he's still in this lead lap. And still in the lead of this race. That's quite remarkable. I tell you what, a stroke of luck there from Mark Redford. But it just goes to show, doesn't it? When he span earlier on, obviously one door closes and the window opens, or whatever the saying is. But basically, he's got a little bit of luck.
Exactly, and that's some of the strategy that we talk about in oval racing. You know, when you're talking about a normal Grand Prix or something like that, you want to pit during the safety car window to narrow down that time. Well, if you're able to extend your cycle out a little bit longer on an oval track and put the other drivers who come down into pit lane a lap down, that is only going to benefit you in the long run. Now, the question is going to be is if the drivers ahead of them are going to be issued the wave around, or if iRacing will start this out as it is, and they will be a lap down. We are hearing from race control right now that the drivers ahead of him will get a wave around, so that will ostensibly equalize the field a little bit, and Redford will start off this race directly behind the safety car. But for drivers like Wills, Campbells, and Matthews that weren't necessarily a part of this conversation, that is going to be absolutely mega for them.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about Campbell a lot, obviously, in this race, haven't we? But we haven't spoken that much about Wills or Matthews. So a couple of new drivers to throw into the mix. And if my SDK overlay is to be believed, then I think Harry Wills has gone up 14 positions from where they qualified. Rich Matthews up 10 positions from where they qualified. So very impressive from those drivers. And obviously, a little bit of luck comes into play. But motorsport, in my personal opinion, it's about 70% luck. So, you know, it's better to have it than to not.
Yeah, indeed. And a lot of that luck is when you're needed when you are racing on an oval like this. As we work our way now under safety car conditions, coming through 3 and 4, just about ready to tick over the halfway point in this race. That's right. It is already coming down to that point. So waiting here for these wave arounds to be issued, I believe, as everybody should be given those wave rounds, and we should get ready to go back to green flag racing here. But this is really going to put the impetus on some of those drivers like Isaac Rain and Loris Muller. They're going to have to fight their way back through some of the cars like Campbell, Stam, Matthews, and Wills, all of who are very, very quick. And indeed, there goes the wave rounds being issued.
Yeah, so we're looking at Isaac Rain, who it's so weird to see him so far down almost, isn't it? But just the way that this pace car has come out and caught the field, but he will catch up to the back of them. Now, I don't believe the pace car lights are out, as we're actually looking at Harry Wills right now in the number 95 car. I think maybe Wills thought that the race was getting going and he actually accelerated with the rest of the field, which obviously was not the case. The safety car lights are out, so actually maybe Wills was just going to line up early doors before Redford got there, to be fair to him. So maybe he was actually smarter than I was just then, which isn't entirely surprising. But a lot of the other cars, they're going to have to absolutely speed it around if they're going to catch and then get into formation before the safety car goes. And it's going to be a bit of a tense one for the likes of Isaac Rain, I'd say. In fact, here he comes now, hitting on the brakes as he lines up behind the rest of the field. So they did that pretty efficiently.
Yeah, indeed, they did. Is the pace car bringing them out of turn 4 right now? It looks like the rest of that field is going to be able to catch up relatively to the back of the pack. Waiting now for the pace car to pull off in, and there it goes. Mark Redford will have control of the field, waits a minute before going, and now he accelerates away, able to get a great jump over Harry Wills there. Kevin Stam and Rich Matthews looking like they're going to be a little bit caught in the dust as Mark Redford just absolutely powering away from this field.
Yeah, I think Redford's learned from what Isaac Rain was doing before, hasn't he? He's absolutely flown off, and not many drivers have been able to keep with him. And in fact, only the top 5 really. Or was that the top 6? It's top 6, isn't it, that broken away slightly. So that does include Isaac Rain, but importantly, it doesn't involve Muller. As soon as that going very, very wide, that's the number 64 of Matthews, isn't it? That's Rich Matthews running a little bit too wide for comfort, shall we say. Brody Maynard got Swales Fitzpatrick and Ben Smith up the backside at the moment, and by the looks of it, Ben Smith and Swales Fitzpatrick are actually swapping positions on this restart. It doesn't just mean that the leaders can have an opportunity at making an impact. Obviously, everybody else does as well. That's Judith Cooper, who's getting lapped there, actually. So that's worth noting as well. Judith Cooper, obviously a back marker, not involved. As we jump to the top 2. In fact, second and third, aren't they?
Yeah, that is second and third. That is Kevin Stam and Harry Wills as they try to go around there. That's Wills on the 95 to the outside, trying to make that momentum line work, as we said. Sean Campbell there in the 26 machine, trying to pick a line there, just trying to opt where it is. He's going to go where the other 2 cars aren't. Now he's going to shift himself up onto that high line. The Ashboro driver trying to get a good little run here behind Harry Wills. Let's see what he is able to do. He is able to clear Sean Campbell, Kevin Stam. Nice and easy. Rich Matthews starting to close in behind, so they're going to try to close in on the back of Mark Redford, but crucially for Redford, he has already established a 1.1 second gap. That is effectively out of the effective draft range.
Yeah, Sean Campbell already hooked up that outside line. You can see he's clear, he's got intention, and the intention is to do exactly the same that what brought him so much success in the first half of this race, isn't he? Now he's going to the inside, though, as Wills is hugging that outer line. So, again, just that ability to adapt. You've got to try and do what the other driver's not, and you've got to try and make it work as well. Campbell up on the inside here. I think he's going to have the move done. He does move ahead of him as they come across the line. Is he going to be able to make the move stick? Redford, like you said, is leading away 1.2 seconds, a long way in the lead of this race for the time being. It might not stay at that gap. It might come down a little bit when they actually get through, but Mills is giving this a right good go to come back at him.
Yeah, certainly is. That 95 working that high line and making it work here around the halfway point in this WSL NASCAR EU event as they continue to go here at Las Vegas. Wills really trying to make that high line work. Looks like he lost out a little bit coming out of 4. He's going to tuck back into line. That was a big snap of oversteer.
Yeah, absolutely was. But Campbell has managed to make it stick. Now here comes Stam. You know what they say, when there's a will, there's a way. And at the moment, there's a will in the way. And he's actually getting sort of brunted out of this a little bit. That snap of oversteer really has ruined him for 2 positions. Not only has he lost out on 2nd, he's lost out on 3rd. And if Isaac Rain has anything to do with it, he'll go down to 5th position sooner rather than later.
Yeah, if these two continue to battle here, that's certainly going to be a problem as we focus back on Swiss Fitzpatrick and Ben Smith. Fitzpatrick working the high side, going back to the side-by-side for P2. Campbell and Stam really trying to get this going. Excuse me, that's Wills and Stam. Campbell checking out a little bit. The number 6 car of Stam losing out a little bit on that high side. Not quite able to carry the momentum.
Yeah, Stam, he just looked like he didn't really expect the corner to be coming. So focused probably was he on the driver on his inside, he almost forgot to turn into the corner. Luckily, there was no crash. This is Brandon Hughes in the middle of a fight between Swiss Fitzpatrick and Ben Smith, and this looks like a really good battle between these 3 drivers, to be honest. A little bit of a snap of oversteer as Ben Smith had to wake on the anchors, and there goes Swiss Fitzpatrick, and it's a huge snap and a great save, to be fair. If they keep it going, yeah, just very well driven, I have to say, although obviously it's not ideal that it happened in the first place. There's a 4th caution out, and I'm hoping that's not for that incident because nothing's happened.
I think it was, unfortunately, as that just triggered it enough. Oh, she made contact there with the outside wall. Very, very lucky she didn't make contact with any of the other cars, holding the brakes, letting that car feather there a little bit, and I think that little jump back up onto the banking there was just enough to trigger the iRacing automatic caution. Cerise now going to come back down pit lane, probably just try to get a little bit of repairs done as she did graze that outside wall.
Yeah, and there's always an opportunity to maybe change the tyres again. They have that extra chance now because obviously I'm not sure how accurate the iRacing are on Goodyear tyres. Oh, as more people are coming into the pits. Mark Redford, Sean Campbell and Harry Wills all jumping and diving down into the apron and down into the pit lane. Now Kevin Stam has stayed out. Now I'm not brilliant when it comes to figuring out pace car and strategies and everything like that, but to me, DJ, seems a little bit early, but I suppose what they might be trying to cover off is the fact that they're going to just top the tank up a little bit, just enough so they don't have to make another pit stop for the next 39 laps, which I suppose is worth doing whilst you're in the pace car, because there's not always a guarantee. You got to be under it when you need it, which is probably about 10 laps from the end.
Yeah, indeed. And I think here for Stam and Menard, who are both stayed out here, as well as Campbell coming back out after coming down pit lane. But for Stam and Menard, both of them, I think, hoping to have a couple of more cautions to be able to extend that gap out a little bit. Stam pitted on lap 48, Menard on lap 45. I don't think they would be able to make it to the end on that unless they get some very, very lucky help from some cautions.
Yeah, and as I said, I think that's the reason why a certain couple of drivers at the front of the field, the likes of Redford and Wills and Rain, all decided that, you know what, it's just better to just cover ourselves now. That way we don't have to worry about anything to the end of the race apart from what you do on track. So although they've put themselves into a little bit of a midfield pack, shall we say, they do just focus now on what the job is in hand, which is everything out on track. No more strategy involved or anything like that. Couple more drivers coming into the pits. Judith Cooper, I believe, in the pits, and Daniel Valk. So those two diving in down the apron. And again, probably thinking along similar lines. Even though they didn't do it in the first lap round, they are obviously doing it in the second lap round.
Well, I think there for them, coming down and getting a quick splash here on the latter parts of this caution, Judith Cooper in particular, who was running a little bit farther down in the order, this is just a little bit of a safety measure. It's just if we do stay clean and green to the end, she just might be able to make it all the way to the checkered flag without needing another pit stop, so might as well sacrifice a little bit of track position to just give yourself that assurance.
That, and I think Judith Cooper is one... In fact, I think when she comes out, she'll be the 4th driver or 3rd driver potentially who will be out on the lap before. So if there is another pace car, the fact that she's got full tank of fuel now, if she gets waved through, obviously with the lucky dog, then she won't have to worry about pitting in. And a whole host of drivers might have to pit in, the likes of Kevin Stam and Brody Maynard, who we've already mentioned, and there's lots of other drivers in that mid-pack that would all have to pit in. So if she gets waved through, and they all pit in, she could jump about 10 cars potentially by playing that sort of move because she won't have to come in towards the end of the race. So very interesting, could be a very clever move. But again, you are sort of relying on another pace car, but then equally, you got nothing to lose if you're a lap down already. You might as well just roll the dice and see what happens.
Yeah, indeed. We will have to see what it is, but drivers are starting to go too wide here, which means that the iRacing pace car lights are going off. We are ready to go back, ready under green flag with 63 laps that we are working on here at Las Vegas. It's going to be Kevin Stam and Bernie Menard up front, Sean Campbell and Mark Redford behind them with Harry Wills and Isaac Rain. Rain able to work his way back up there, and I got to tell you here at this point, I would be very, very scared about that number 63 being that close to the front.
Yeah, and I'm sure Isaac Rain, who did a brilliant job at the first 3 starts to this race, didn't have it all his own way in the mid part, will be hoping to come back strong at the end of it, recapture some of the magic that made him the pace setter at the beginning of this particular race here at Las Vegas. And like you said, I think a few of the people will probably be looking in their mirrors, wondering who's around them, looking at their timers. Maybe they got a spotter or two around the place as well. And just think, you know what, out of everybody that's here, Isaac Rain from 6th position could be a bit of a dark horse. We'll have to keep an eye on him.
We will indeed, but everybody keeping their eye right now on Kevin Stam, who will bring this field to the green flag as the iRacing sedan scampers off into pit lane, control of the field, going to the number 6, waits on it, and now gets on the loud pedal. Brody Menard able to slot in behind, running 1, 2, 3 are your top 3. Sean Campbell in that 3rd place position. A little bit of side-by-side there in the back. That looks like it's for 5th position between Rain and Wills. Rain going to be taking the high side, taking that 5th position away as drivers start to sort themselves out here on the first lap of green flag running.
Stam didn't do as good a job as Redford or Rain earlier on, did they, at trying to break away, but he has done a semi-reasonable job, mainly to the fact that Campbell is up the inside of Maynard so quickly, and those two battling means that Stam does just get a little bit of an extra maybe 10th or 2 out of the leaders, but that 10th or 2 is dissipated within an instant because now Campbell is going for the race lead. As we look a little bit further backwards at Rich Matthews versus Loris Muller, there is the battle for the race lead. It's Stam versus Campbell. We saw this earlier on in the race, and we saw that between Loris Muller, and there's a crash in the background. Who is that? Isaac Rain in the 63. Has he managed to hold it? No, he hasn't, and I thought he was going to hit another driver. He managed to hold it away from that, but thankfully Isaac Rain, now I think that's going to cause another...
No, it's still green. He was able to pull that car back down onto the apron and keep us clean and green, but we've got 2x2 Noah's Ark style going down into turn 1. Sean Campbell and Mark Redford duking it out for P1, Kevin Stam and Bernie Menard, and that's going to be Loris Muller. Remember his name? He is back into the mix. He is going to be fighting for those top 5s. They dive down into turn 3 right now. Looks like a good run for Kevin Stam, but has to back out of it a little bit under Sean Campbell. Campbell working a little bit on that midline right now. They're all going to come relatively single file as now Loris Muller works the high side.
Yeah, brilliant racing for the top end of this field now, isn't it? It's bunched up quite a lot. It's almost like we're watching Daytona again. Whoa. There's a massive snap there for the 68 of Loris Muller, trying to pull down from the outside, high line to the down into the in, and it just snapped away from him as the top 2 now start to pull away. Redford versus Campbell, probably the 2 drivers there, and Isaac Rain that you probably think deserve to be there towards the end of the race. Any one of those 3 or 4 could actually probably put a claim to being deserved winner of this race. It's going to be fantastic to see how they all settle themselves out a little later on. But away from the top 2 is the fight for 3rd place. Stam leading it, Muller just behind, Maynard on the inside line with Brandon Hughes trying to go for that hybrid middle, as there's a contact with the wall on the outside there between Stam and the wall, and I think Muller and the wall as well. So both drivers trying to push the car to the absolute limits and almost pushed it too far.
Indeed, that was Stam running a little bit too far up the track, running into the outside wall. Loris Muller left with nowhere to go, just running into the back of him. You can see the damage there on that number 68 machine. I don't think it's affecting him too much, as he's at least able to keep his head ahead of Kevin Stam as they dive down now through the corner, trying to wait and see. He's drifting up the track a little bit, throwing a little bit of a slide job to protect that outside line down to the inside. I believe that's the number 7 of Suisse Fitzpatrick, getting very interested in all of this. She's going to dive that car down low. Hope it doesn't run up too hard. That's a great move for the 7.
Yeah, just lick the stamp and hope it sticks, and that's exactly what Fitzpatrick did, really throwing a name into the mix, and the spanner in the works from a few of these front-running drivers, but not these two. Running away with it at the moment is Redford and Campbell, and Lord knows they'll be praying that there isn't another caution period, because they've done everything right so far in pretty much every restart, and this one in particular, this could be the one where it counts as well. So as we look a little bit further back, we see Ben Smith currently running a little bit on its own, as there was a big snap from someone just behind them. But further forward, again, is the 92 of Maynard. Now, this is for the final podium position. Maynard and Fitzpatrick and Hughes, three drivers we didn't really expect to be right at the front. Fitzpatrick was there earlier on, but sort of disappeared for the majority of this race. But right now, they're throwing their hat into the ring, and they're making it stick. Here comes Muller just behind.
Muller just behind as we focus back in on the leaders here. That is Mark Redford and Sean Campbell. Campbell looking a little bit aggressive. I think he wants to try to take that first place position away from Mark Redford, if at all humanly possible. The gap that they have been able to build up, though, is about 2.5 seconds, so they are able to battle with themselves and not have to worry about any attacks coming from behind. Campbell just running in line. There is your third place driver, Cerise Fitzpatrick, as she will not be denied here today. Up 2 positions on the day. She has been in the trenches, but absolutely fighting tooth and nail. Brendan Hughes behind her, trying to see if he can get that 33 up into the podium.
Yeah, and why not, really? The podium's there to be gotten. These two just pulling away from the likes of Maynard and Muller and Wills at the end. You have to look all the way down to 13th before you find a stranded Isaac Rain, obviously, who had a big moment just after the safety car restart and has really not gone his way, considering he qualified right at the front of the order, I believe on pole position. He held the lead for a long time anyway, even if it wasn't qualifying on pole. Looking a little bit further back, this is Loris Muller, again a driver who really, you were looking at potentially winning this race. Now with a damaged front end, that'll be really hurting his straight line speed. And in NASCAR, a lot of it is to do with straight line speed, and that's why he's just getting eaten up here. I think that's due to the contact maybe he had earlier on with Stam, who just touched the wall on the outside, or maybe it was even himself touching the wall on the outside. Either way, it's absolutely killing him here.
Yeah, it's absolutely killing him. And the other thing he's going to really have to watch out for is that heavy damage to the front end of the car. That can damage the radiator, and he is going to have to be especially careful of overheating temps to make sure he doesn't blow the engine. As there, he's able to get a good move done on Brody Maynard, but Maynard trying to fight him back around the outside. The 95 directly ahead of them, that's Harry Wills, and it looks like that straight line speed compromising the 68 a little bit. That is Maynard that we ride on board with right now, trying to pinch down Muller if he can, prevent him from really getting as much momentum as he can out of turn 2, and indeed, that is going to be Muller having to fall back into line.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? You can have all the grip in the world in NASCAR, but if you don't have the punch and the pull in the straight line, you just don't really have a chance. And like you said, even if he hunkered up behind Maynard for the rest of this race and ran in the slipstream for the next 25 laps, the problem is if the radiator's shot, he's just going to overheat much quicker than anybody else would. And look, he dives to the inside, he has the grip to attack, but then he doesn't have the pull out of the corner. You're basically a sitting duck at that point. You just feel sorry for Muller right now. It's a bit painful for him, I imagine. But the important thing is, obviously, it's a championship. It's not a one-off race. And if we look at the championship, I'm just looking for Muller's name. And it's not currently in the top... Well, he must be in the top 20, but I can't see him. In fact, I don't think he is in the top 20. So these will be important championship points if he's going to stay here for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, indeed he is. So he is going to want to try to keep up there. That is one of the things of a long season like this. You certainly want to keep your name in the mix as much as possible. Focusing back a little further in the field, this is Isaac Rain as he tries to cover himself back up there a little bit. He's currently the last car on the lead lap, trying to make some moves right now on Dean Timms to be able to recover a little bit of those points that he lost. We are under a quarter race distance here to go, only 23 laps left, so it is really starting to be now or never time for these drivers.
Yeah, they're going to have to start pushing it hard. Some drivers will be hoping for different things. Some drivers will be hoping for his pace car. Some drivers won't be. Some drivers will not mind either way. And remember, we've got a couple of drivers who still need to come into the pit lane, remember, who didn't come into the pits on that last pace car. So it's going to be interesting whether we see anybody diving in within the next 10 laps or so, whether they're going to literally eke out their supply right up until the very last second, and obviously hoping for a pace car sort of bail them out somewhat. Great driving here by Jonathan Havey and Ben Smith and Rich Matthews as the driver's coming back off the apron. Is that someone who was exiting the pit lane?
I'm not entirely sure. I didn't see somebody coming on. Not sure about that. But yeah, Havey doing a good job. That'll bump his way up into 8th place overall. This battle continuing to play out behind him. Rich Matthews and Ben Smith. Looks like Rich is able to hold on in that number 64 machine. Big fan of that number, by the way, as they work their way through the corner, riding on board with Ben Smith as he can see Matthews just a little bit on the higher groove than he is. He may be able to carry a little bit more momentum, but it looks there a little bit that Rich Matthews trying to be a little bit defensive, cover off that inside line, wants to prevent that dive going down to the inside. Jumping back, though, to Loris Muller in that 68 machine. He looks like he's been able to at least stop the bleeding for now in 6th place. He does have Brody Maynard there behind him, and as soon as I say that, Maynard sends a big move down to the inside.
Yeah, we didn't see how he got that move. Maybe Maynard made a little bit of a mistake. Maybe it was sort of cunning driving from Muller. We're not 100% sure, but every time we look at this little battle, it just looked like Maynard has the advantage than Muller. So it's difficult right now to sort of call which way this one's going to go. I reckon Muller is probably using a lot of tyres, put it that way. Looking further forward, this is Fitzpatrick versus Hughes, the last step of the podium. Fitzpatrick is currently holding it. Hughes is currently the one challenging, and as we look back from Fitzpatrick's car, we can start to see that the Mustang, I think it's a Mustang anyway, charging up the inside. As I said it, the badge disappeared as Hughes goes to the inside.
Indeed, that is the Mustang there of Hughes trying to fight that Camry to the outside. Fitzpatrick carrying a little bit more momentum as they cross over the stripe with 18 laps to go here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It looks like Hughes is going to have the preferred line. Can Fitzpatrick do anything about it on the fight back? She's going to run a little bit of a crossover there, tuck up behind the draft of the number 33 and see what she can do. They have been able to close that gap down, though, on your leaders of Campbell and Redford. It's now only 1.2 seconds. It was north of 2 seconds a couple of laps ago.
Yeah, that's going to be really important. Campbell's got ahead of Redford as well, and that gap's sort of eking out to about 0.3 of a second. Now, remember, Redford might just be saving a bit of fuel or might be saving a little bit of tyres or something, ready to attack later on. But it's going to be really interesting to see whether Campbell, with that high line, is able to keep the tyres going, because we've seen a lot of snaps of oversteer. We've seen the car being quite unhappy quite a lot of the time, the way Campbell is driving it with that sort of higher line. It's going to be interesting to see whether it can actually keep hold of it as Redford charges down. But Hughes and Fitzpatrick, well, since Hughes has got past DJ, a gap has certainly opened up. It's almost to about half a second at the moment. Well, it's 0.2 of a second. It's come back actually now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's coming back a little bit, and that may have just been a little bit of foresight there for Cerise Fitzpatrick, calming the tires down a little bit more as they continue to get around there, working their way through, going around, trying to see what it is. She could have just been cooling the tires down a little bit. Yeah,
which is, as you said, a very smart idea for the long run, even though we've only got 15 laps to go. I've already said about Redford wanting to have the tyres underneath him, the car underneath him, to be able to attack full-blooded towards the last 2 or 3 laps, and that might be what we're seeing from Fitzpatrick as well, as they're overtaking some of the back markers. I think that might be Gerard Wareham, who they're overtaking currently, but it's going to be interesting, the psychology. And here is a lot of drivers going 2 by 2 by 2. Hurrah, hurrah, they say, as Muller and Maynard are very much holding the likes of Havey, Smith, Matthews and Stam up.
Yes, they are, but this is that crucial battle. Remember, we talked about Loris Muller trying to get his way through there, the best of his abilities, and this is a true gaggle of cars right now. That is Brody Maynard getting passed on the outside there. That is, I believe, Harry Wills that's going to be able to do that. Everybody just trying to sort of sort themselves out around here. Loris Muller, that's Matthew Heatrick directly behind him. That is a lapped car.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Heatrick, I spotted the number. Now, I thought Maynard was about to come into the pits, and maybe that's why they slowed up by such a large amount. But they haven't, so they've carried on. Campbell leading this race from Redford then, but look at the gap. The gap between Redford and Hughes is about the same as the gap from Redford to Campbell now. So Campbell's really been able to pull away from Redford, but probably more importantly, and slightly more impressively, is the fact that Hughes has managed to, since being latched to the back of Fitzpatrick, pull up to the back of these two drivers. I mean, what we'd love to see, DJ, and I'm sure everybody at home would love to see, is a three-way battle for the race lead come the end of this race. Because Redford's starting to pull Campbell back now. Since we started looking at him, actually, he's put the hammer down. So with 12 laps to go, Redford's starting to catch up.
Indeed, he is. And the driver who's falling back a little bit, unfortunately, from that is Saoirse Fitzpatrick, who has fallen back to about 0.5 of a second behind Hughes. But if that battle continues, we could see a little bit more taking place. Focusing you around here a little bit more. Another close battle out on track. I believe that is the battle for the lead as we ride on board with Sean Campbell. You can see Mark Redford really starting to close in behind. Saoirse doing a good job as well. She's been able to get that gap back down again. It's now under 0.5 of a second, so we could see it. Oh, here comes a move for Redford down to the inside. We've got a driver coming down pit lane, though. That's Kevin Stam.
It is. So Kevin Stam obviously diving to the pits. One of the drivers that didn't take it early on, but here goes a race-leading move. Redford up the inside, across the start-finish line, trying to overtake Campbell with 10 to go. This is intention. Here comes Hughes. I'm loving Brandon Hughes. I was loving Brandon Hughes. He touches the outside of the wall as the commentator curse hits him hard. Saoirse Fitzpatrick has gone into third position.
Yes, she has. So she is going to try to hold that in. She's got about 0.9 of a second between herself and Mark Redford. And caution! Caution is out with 10 to go.
Yeah, so who was in the lead when the caution came out? Was it Campbell? Was it Redford? We'll find out, but the number 64 is the reason. And that's Rich Matthews, unfortunately, hitting the wall and, by the looks of it, blowing an engine at the same time. There's a lot of smoke coming out of that one. And, yeah, no wonder they've ended up retiring.
Indeed. Is not entirely sure how that brought out the yellow. Could have just been a little bit of trip there by the iRacing system. So we will get everything re-racked here with 9 laps to go. Oh, another car around. That's the number 9 machine, it looks like, unless I'm crazy. Excuse me, that's the 3. That could have been what also brought out the green. I think that was Ben Smith maybe just trying to slow down after the yellow had been thrown. A little bit of contact there in the back as well. And you know, we talked a little bit about how hard these cars are to brake. Obviously, oh, that is big contact of the wall. Waiting to see any automatic trips. That may have been what brought out the yellow.
Yeah, that's not ideal. And that's just a big snap away. And whether or not that was because he fully well lifted, and unfortunately, I'll tell you what, that's cued a lot of people to come into the pit lane, hasn't it? It might have been because he full lifted when he saw the caution coming out, when he was halfway round the corner, which is never a brilliant idea because the car is under so much load. The last thing you want is to give it even more weight transfer to throw it off course, which is exactly what happened. But with 8 to go, last caution, I reckon that might have saved a few people there, DJ, because there's a lot of people jumping into the pits that will probably get a little bit sweaty in their seats because they will have probably run out of fuel by the end of this race, which obviously wouldn't have been ideal. But now they've all managed to jump in, not lose as much time, as they did before. In fact, we're starting to see them filter back to the back of this queue. So we can sort of probably run down the top 10, which arguably is probably the fight for the race lead. So Sean Campbell still leading this race. So it was Sean Campbell. Fitzpatrick is in second place. And where has Redford gone all of a sudden? Was he coming in? Did he come into the pit lane? Where is Redford?
He did indeed. It looks like Campbell and Fitzpatrick are the only two of that leading group that opted to stay out. I'm also seeing Daniel Valk staying out, but everyone from Havey, Hughes, Muller, Redford, Maynard, Wills, Stam, everybody else coming down pit lane here on lap 92. So some varying strategy could play into this.
So I wonder if I doubt they'll have taken tyres, unless that's the only tactical reason I can see for bringing this one in. Unless Campbell, obviously, he was behind Redford for a long time. Now, will we be able to see whether they take tyres or not here, DJ? This is Redford. We're waiting to see if they go up on the stilts. And there we go, the stilts are on. So is that just going to be the right side? Are they going to take the left-hand side as well? Because really, the right side is where all the grip is coming from. There we go, the lefts go up as well. So that's 4 new tyres, all for Redford. Now, that could be crucial because Campbell will have had pretty tortured tyres, considering he took them, I think, lap 47. So this could be a big call from the likes of Redford and Muller and everybody else.
Yeah, it very much could be. Campbell and Fitzpatrick staying out there on those tortured tires. And I do have to say, though, there for Redford, that looked like a long stop there for him as he was stationary in the box 19 seconds. Most other drivers that I'm seeing coming in and out of the box are on 14 to even 10-second pit stop time. So Redford's going to have some work here to do. I anticipate we'll get restarted probably with 5 to go here for the 5-lap shootout. So that is going to be a little bit interesting. And the drivers that are going to be starting directly behind Campbell and Fitzpatrick, that's going to be Havey, Hughes, Muller, and Redford. So that is going to be the flock of hornets that they are going to have to watch out for.
Yeah, I don't know how this one's going to go down, actually, because Campbell looks pretty assured, but and unfortunately, we can't get a breakdown of all of their individual laps over the last 10 or so. So we can't see whether their lap times have really dropped away compared to, say, people who are on brand new tyres. Safety car lights are out, so the drivers are starting to queue up. So I don't believe we're going to be we're coming to the end of the pit lane. We just started this final lap under the pace car, haven't we? So yeah, we can't really get a comparison of how quick the best lap times are compared to, say, with aged tyres. But I think there's about a second in it. And if that's the case, Campbell's got to be wondering whether they've taken the right call here. Because even though the likes of Redford are in 6th position, that's only 3 rows back from them. And that's fully within range, shall we say, of attacking with 5 to go.
Indeed, it is. This is going to be very, very interesting. Actually, hearing Campbell on the radio right now, maybe double thinking his maneuver there to stay out and keep track position. But we are going to find out how things are going to play out. 5 laps to go here at Las Vegas. Sean Campbell and Saoirse Fitzpatrick lead the race right now, and they are going to have a very, very hungry group behind them on fresher rubber. Let's see what happens. Pace car pulls off into the pits, giving control of the field over to Sean Campbell. Campbell waiting on it, and there he goes. He's able to get a great jump, and that's going to pull Jonathan Havey along with him as they get going under green conditions. 5 laps to go here in Las Vegas.
Fitzpatrick's pretty much already out of this one as they went across the start-finish line. Havey with a fantastic restart. How are they sorting themselves out in the background? They're 3 wide between Maynard, Hughes, and I believe Wills. Redford gets just overtaken by Wills as well, but it's a great restart by Campbell. In fact, for 2nd place, Fitzpatrick going for it again on Havey. This is everything that Campbell wants to see in his rearview mirrors. Everything he doesn't want to see is another caution period. He's got a fantastic run. He's got half a second to good as Havey still gets into 2nd place. Ahead of Fitzpatrick, ahead of Muller, then Maynard. Hughes side by side with Wills. Redford hasn't made any impact whatsoever, and that's a huge slide and a great save by somebody in the background as Havey goes off onto the left-hand side, and there's another crash in the background. There's multiple crashes in the background. We're into the 6th caution period. We have 4 to go. We may end up with a green-white finish here.
We may indeed. A GWC attempt may be sent out. And as you said, Havey there looked very, very squirrely coming off at turn 2. It looked like he had to check himself up a little bit. I'm not sure if there was contact there with Saoirse Fitzpatrick or not. We'll have to go back to the replay and double check that. But Havey, there was a huge checkup for him coming out of 2. And it looked like Fitzpatrick had a mega run that was just blunted because she had to get on the binders a little bit.
I'm just wondering. Obviously, drivers have taken new tyres and everything. Did they get them up to temperature? Is that why we're maybe seeing a little bit of too much snapping here, there, and everywhere? It's people trying to push the car a little bit too hard before the tyres were really at their peak optimum. I think there's an argument there maybe saying, and here it is. Now, there a contact, DJ. Now, there may have been netcode. It didn't look like there was close enough to be actual contact, but netcode is, unfortunate, a bit of a play. Redford was one of the cars that was spinning in the background there with, I believe, Hughes, actually. So again, Redford making contact with Hughes has caused Hughes to go into the pit lane. And now I'd like to see if there's any other angle between Fitzpatrick and Havey. I'm sure Dave Christie will be on it if he can, just searching through a few of the drivers there. And we could already see the car just loose on the back end. Fitzpatrick goes back through. Going to be a difficult one to call. It's going to be a difficult one to capture, to be honest. But the upshot is, DJ, Sean Campbell still leads, but he has to do all that hard work that he did after the first restart again.
Yeah, indeed he does, and we are getting official confirmation here that this will be a green-white checker attempt. There you can see the contact around in the back. That is what we believe that actually brought out the caution period here. That is the 63 of Isaac Rain, who was looking like the dominant driver out here over the course of the day. His luck just going from bad to worse as he gets spun around. Looks like he is down pit lane, currently classified as 15th overall.
Yeah, so not ideal, is it, for Isaac Rain, really? He'll obviously trying to be come back swinging next time out. And just to give you a quick view of next time out, obviously the overall calendar, I just had it up and now it's gone away from me. There it is. Las Vegas, obviously, is tonight. We had Daytona in the night last week. Charlotte is the one we're at next week, which I suppose is a little bit more like Las Vegas than it is Daytona. Is that right, DJ?
Yes, it is a quad oval there, so that's going to change things up a little bit, but it is very much another bread and butter mile-and-a-half track for these NASCAR drivers, and it will certainly send things up to make it very, very interesting. I can guarantee you that.
Exactly. So Richmond is the one after that. That's in the night as well. Then we're halfway through the season. Off to California after Richmond. Pocono, one of my personal favourites. Then Homestead, and rounding out the season, the one and only Talladega, round 8. That's on the 2nd of June, I believe that is. So plenty of racing still to be had here at the WSL NASCAR European League. And obviously, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, then there is the WSL NASCAR USA coming up a couple of hours after this. I'm not sure how many hours. It might only be 45 minutes, actually, off the top of my head. But if you're enjoying what you're seeing, then subscribe to Absolute Sim Racing. You'll be able to catch more action with a whole host of other drivers and other commentators in a couple of hours' time.
Well, and you get to stick around for at least one commentator, because I'm going to be on that one later tonight, U.S. time. So there you go.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that, DJ. Oh, good luck. I hope it's as exciting as this one has been.
I can't imagine it not being. Las Vegas always sending up a fantastic race. As we did say, we will have a green-white checkers attempt here. I believe the lights on the iRacing pace car should be going off this time to set up for that green-white checker. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this procedure, so what this is the green flag will fly, and then drivers will come around to get the white flag the next time by. When that white flag flies, the next flag will end the race. So if there is a big kerfluffle, if there is a big accident that happens after the white flag has been in the air, then drivers will continue around for the checkered. If drivers have not received that white flag and we are on the first lap of restart and there is another yellow that is thrown, we will re-rack them again and we will have another green-white checkers attempt. It is NASCAR's way of making sure that we stay clean and green and have a fantastic ending.
Yeah, it's certainly something I think F1 could maybe think about sort of implementing slightly. I think after all the kerfuffle, shall we say, that was at the end of the last year F1. But yeah, hopefully we stay green and clean for at least the first lap, because obviously what we want to see is a big grandstand finish right at the end, don't we? And obviously Campbell, he'll probably be thinking that, you know, the tyres really, there is no massive advantage to having brand new tyres now, I would say, for these last 2 laps, basically. Campbell, he'll be thinking if he can get a good start, just like he did in the first restart, gain half a second maybe, then that's already pretty much 1 lap in the bag. All he has to do then is defend for 1 more lap, and that's if they even manage to sort themselves out to pick someone who's actually going to go and attack him. So Campbell, it's pretty much all about the restart here. How can he pull it out?
And we're going to find that out here in just a few seconds as the pace car pulls off into pit lane. Campbell holding the field. There he goes on it. Looks like Fitzpatrick is going to be able to get that car down into second place position ahead of Loris Muller. Menard trying to find a little bit of something here, looking to the inside of Muller, but that's not going to work. Campbell continues to lead. Fitzpatrick behind. Muller, your top 3.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick had a better restart, but it hasn't had a better fly off the second corner, has she, as Muller looks to the inside. This could be a battle between Loris Muller and Sean Campbell by the end of it, which is what we saw towards the beginning of this race. Fitzpatrick delves into 3rd position, trying to cover off Maynard, who obviously finished quite well last week. Wills and Redford still 5th and 6th. Redford, again, not really making that much of an impact, although moves into 5th position, fourth position now, as it's that Hughes who flies off. No, it's Fitzpatrick. Seisha Fitzpatrick flies off the outside, and is that going to cause a safety car, a flag? I'm not sure.
No, it is not. White flag is in the air, so we will go to checkered flag here. Sean Campbell leading, but it looks like Loris Muller's going to have a little bit of a run at him. Is he going to have anything as they cross the stripe? No, it's Sean Campbell, Loris Muller, and Brody Menard that will take your top 3 at Las Vegas.
I'll tell you what, I just wanted that for a few more laps. I was hoping we weren't on the final lap. I wanted to re-rack and see it all again, but that was brilliant. Campbell, again, executing a restart to perfection. Muller, not really in it for the majority of this race, apart from maybe the first 20 laps. All of a sudden comes through to 2nd place. Fantastic by them. And Maynard, again, not really involved in the first half of the race. All of a sudden comes in and finishes so strong. And that's what we love about NASCAR. It's so unpredictable. Everybody has a chance as long as you're on the lead lap, basically. I mean, even the likes of Redford, dominant in a lot of this race, as well as Isaac Rain, dominant. Rain ended up in 17th position and is out of this race. Redford was in 9th. So it's amazing how things can just flip on you in NASCAR.
Exactly. It's one of the amazing things about watching series like this. And let's go ahead and run you through those unofficial results. Let's actually take a look here at the replay of just what happened coming through those final couple of corners. Fitzpatrick just looked like that car got a little bit squirrely coming through 1 and 2. Now, this is the run to the white flag. That's Maynard behind her. There you see Saoirse trying to go up to the outside on Loris Muller. Tries to drive that car in, and it looks like those old tires just gave way a little bit. Big twitch of oversteer right into the outside wall.
Yeah, so it's going around the first corner. It looked like it caught out a whole host of other people as well, didn't it? Unfortunately, that's really gutting because Fitzpatrick drove brilliantly all through that race, as did a lot of the other drivers who unfortunately fell victim to the sort of unforgiving nature, shall we say, of Las Vegas and of NASCAR racing. But Sean Campbell took the victory, and hopefully we'll be able to bring you the full breakdown of the finishing order.
Indeed, we will. It was Campbell, Muller, and Brody Menard rounding out your top 3 with Harry Willis and Jonathan Havey behind them. Daniel Valk was in P6, Kevin Stam 7th. Saoirse Fitzpatrick only good enough for 8th after that last lap accident. Mark Redford in 9th. Brandon Hughes came home in 10th with Dean Timms, Artie Bouchard, Judith Cooper, Dion Noonveld, Gerard Wareham, Matthew Heatrick, and Isaac Rain, with Rich Matthews finishing multiple laps down on the track. And there you can see some of the drivers that were unfortunately DNFs on here on the day, including Cadmore and Bruning.
Yeah, so, I mean, Bruning we lost really early on, didn't we? And obviously Robbie Power as well, I don't believe even took the start line. So, yeah, as I said, unforgiving, pretty punishing here at Las Vegas. And we're hoping to get a few people in to have a chat to. And actually, I can already see drivers lining up in the broadcast waiting room to have a chat to us. We're sort of waiting for maybe any of the top 3. As Brody Maynard has made their way into the broadcast waiting room. So DJ, while me or David try and move him across, we'll have a chat to Brody. In fact, there he is. So DJ, why don't you have a chat to our third place finisher?
Well, Brody, it was a little bit of a chaotic race there for you. You were mired in the mid-pack for most of it, but then able to come back and make the best of it at the end.
Yeah, well, I don't know what to say to that race, to be honest. It's been absolutely bonkers. Yeah, I think last week was a similar scenario to this week. Coming to the end of the race, in a good position, just tried to make the most of it. Got a good result in the end. I'm just lost for thirds again.
Well, you can't be balking at a third too much. That's obviously a great result. Talk me through your mindset on that green-white checkered. Obviously, Saoirse having the problem coming up through turn 1 and 2, but were you trying to play things a little bit more conservative on that last run, or were you absolutely foot to the floor?
Oh, I was absolutely full send. Yeah, I was just absolutely foot to the floor, just getting the most out of the tyres from that late pit stop. I think coming into the last caution, before the green-white checkered, I was literally so close on fuel, like I was spluttering coming into the pit lane. I had to clutch and coast, but if that didn't happen, then I would not have been where I was.
Well, looking ahead in this championship, it's starting to look like, and obviously we're very, very early on, but it's a little bit of a battle between you and Sean Campbell. As you head to Charlotte, as you head to the other tracks on this circuit, are you looking race to race, or are you looking more long-term and hoping for that championship?
I think I'm just going to take each race as it comes. In my mind, other guys are faster than me. Looking at the tracks, I know there's a few tracks where I'm not so confident. Coming into this race, actually, I wasn't too confident. Not done many laps at this circuit, but I think going forward, just taking it race by race and just hoping for the best.
Well, I would certainly say that you got the best out of it today. Is there anybody you'd like to thank for putting this number 92 up on the podium?
I'd like to thank Kevin Starman and Anti-Store Racing. They've run a really, really good setup over there, and for them, they actually provided me with the car, the scheme to run, and it's just been absolutely amazing racing with those guys. A big shout out to Gerard Wareham as well. He's been such an amazing guy to work with as well. Both of them really, really great guys.
Well, thank you, Brody, and congratulations again on a well-deserved podium here at a chaotic race.
Cheers, thanks a lot.
Oh, well, I was about to chat with Mark Redford, but then he disappeared. Now he's back, actually, so we have got Mark Redford. Now, Mark, that was a challenging end to the race, of what a race that you looked like you probably at one point were really enjoying.
I did really enjoy that race. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, yeah, it was just great. The car was good, and yeah, I enjoyed all of it apart from the end when I got it all wrong.
I was going to say, I don't want to take the obvious smile off your face, but we will talk about what happened at the end there. Sort of talk it through from your perspective.
Well, on the first restart, well, the second to last restart, the car in front of me spun, and I just kind of lifted a bit too much and spun myself. And then on the last lap, I don't know, I was going okay, and then I don't know if someone took the air off the rear or something, but the car just started to go round, and that was it. So yeah, the car is really, really tricky around there. 1 and 2 loose, 3 and 4 a little bit tight. So trying to balance that with the setup. You know, you're either too loose in 1 and 2, or you're too tight in 3 and 4.
Well, I was going to say, you managed it no matter how you did it, sort of thing. So you're obviously the end of the race isn't how you fancied it, but as you mentioned, you did have the car pretty well set up for the majority of that one, and you and Sean Campbell was having some properly good battles through the rest of that.
Yeah, I mean, Sean just came right up to the back of me, and then I thought, well, if we're going to go green all the way, I might need to save about a lap of fuel. So I went to let him by, and I brushed the wall, which wasn't ideal, but saved a bit of fuel. And then, yeah, I was quite disappointed when that last caution came out, or the cautions near the end, because we were good for a 1 and 2 between us.
You actually dived into the pits when those cautions came out, didn't you? And obviously Sean Campbell didn't. So talk us through that decision making, because it's split. I'd say it's split opinion, because half of the grid didn't and half the grid did.
Well, it's all about the tyres, isn't it? And there were quite a few cars a lap down. So, you know, I think there were probably 6 or 7 cars on the lead lap. So even if I took tyres and the other guys stayed out, I'd have had fresh tyres and still been, you know, up and around the top 5. So it was worth it, I thought. Anyway, Sean obviously had a different opinion, and it worked out for him. So well done, Sean.
Well, indeed, yes. But I was going to say, looking a little bit further forward then, for the championship as a whole, are you hoping to take the momentum for the majority of this race, obviously, over to Charlotte and the rest of the calendar? Have you committed to the rest of the calendar, or is this a one-off? How's the season looking for you?
Yeah, I'll be racing as many as I can. Hopefully all of them. It just depends on whether I need to drive my lad wheel down to a track on a Thursday night. Hopefully I don't need to, and I can do the whole season. Unlucky, didn't go well at Daytona, unfortunately, and then tonight I've lost a few points there, so we'll see. I'll need a few good results.
And do you do, last question, do you do much NASCAR driving, sort of generally in iRacing, or is your sort of sense of speed and driving slightly turning left just from going around the M56, M6 and M62?
No, it's all, I've basically specialised more in ovals and road racing since the days of NASCAR Racing 3, NASCAR Racing 2. So, yeah, I really enjoy the ovals. So that's my specialism, I guess. And I'm trying to improve my road racing as well.
Well, good stuff. Anybody you'd quickly like to shout out, Mark, before we let you go?
Quick shout out to Will and Luke if they're watching, my sons, and to my sponsor Nesty in the Woods, and to you guys for putting the league on and doing the excellent coverage. Thanks.
You make us blush, Mark. Thank you very much. We'll hopefully speak to you next week.
All right, Jack. Thank you.
And that was...
Go ahead.
Sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say that was Mark Redford, and I think we've got time for one more interview on the day. Isaac Rain. Isaac, you were up at the front, and then some bad luck brought you back down into the mid-pack. But, I mean, how are you feeling after a race like that?
Bit frustrated, to be honest. So, yeah, I don't really know what happened. I was leading the lead pack. Tyres started to wear a little bit, so I thought I'll drop back a little bit and kind of just save my tyres. And then we got a bit unlucky with the pit strategy. On the restart, I restarted 6th, got stuck up on the top groove, which isn't too bad in the long run to save tyres, but I wanted to get back down into the low lane, and each time I did, someone kept poking their nose on the inside of me. Took away all the air on my spoiler, sent me really loose up into the wall, bounced into the traffic. Somehow, no one hit me. But yeah, that was just such an unlucky race for me today.
I mean, how do you come back from an unlucky race like that? Obviously gutting here, but Charlotte is next week. Is it just kind of put everything into focusing on that, or is there stuff that you'll go back and watch and try to focus in on to be better?
I know exactly what I did wrong. It's just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the pit strategy. I mean, I could get good restarts, but I kind of left me out in the open then, so they could get a good draft and catch right back up to me on the back stretch. So I know if I'm in the lead at Charlotte, just kind of get the restarts properly, so I'm not getting so far ahead. Getting so far ahead is a good thing. I'll try it like Las Vegas, but Charlotte, where the cornering speed is a lot less because the corners are a lot more tight, you don't want to be that far ahead. Dirty air is not an issue. So you can get a big... Yeah, it's just... I know what I did wrong. I know exactly what I did. It's not about watching it back, it's just about being lucky.
Well, despite a little bit of a tough day for you there, is there anybody you'd like to thank for your run?
Well, the setup was really good. So I'd like to thank Adam Hancock at TGR Nation to help me just tune that, fine-tune it. And honestly, everybody I was running with, it was really good racing. Myself, Sean, who else was there? There was Mark at one point, and Loris. We were racing really well. It was really good racing up front. And that long run we had after the second caution, I think it was really good racing. It's something that we can't really have at Daytona because it's just an absolute mess. So yeah, everybody I was racing with, and Adam at TGR Nation, thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Isaac. That was Isaac Rain, driver of the number 63. And now, Jack, I believe you've got one final interview for us on the day.
Yeah, so we're going to be bringing in Saoirse Fitzpatrick. Now, Saoirse, first of all, how badly am I butchering your first name? Because I believe we've been pronouncing it wrong for the majority of this broadcast.
You said Saoirse, right?
I said Saoirse just then.
Yeah, that's close enough.
Oh, we'll give that a go then. Okay, brilliant. Saoirse, you were in P2. I've just seen you obviously chatting away in the YouTube comments, but I thought we'd give you a voice now to really talk us through your perspective of those last 5 laps.
The last 5. So
well, the last 3, the green-white finish, I
last
suppose.
3, green-white checker. Okay, so I'm kind of thinking to myself, because through the long green flag run before the caution on 91, I'm thinking, okay, I almost have the pace to catch Sean here. So on both of the restarts, I was just focusing on getting a good restart. Didn't happen either time. I got lucky on the first one that whoever passed me got loose and went down onto the apron. But the second time, I'm actually not sure who got alongside me, but I was desperate to stay ahead. And just overdrove it on the high line and just lost the rear, and it put me in the wall.
So there was no contact or anything like that. It was just a
Nope.
case of a bit of overdriving.
Yep, I just pushed it a little. I just like asked the car for that little bit too much, and it bit me.
That's a big shame, isn't it? Really, but because it was a lot of hard work through that race. Because you were right there at the sort of beginning, weren't you? And then in the middle, it sort of went away a little bit. But that graft and that extra hard work meant that you had that opportunity at the end. Is that sort of how you felt your night went in the end?
Yeah, it felt like on the short run, I kind of went nowhere, but the longer the green flags, the laps went by, the faster and faster I got. It felt like, so I was really hoping we would have gone green to the end.
Slightly different question then. We've obviously had Daytona, we've had Las Vegas, both very, very different in the way that you approach the race and the way you actually drive the race and everything like that. What's been your sort of favoured, I suppose, for when you sort of look forward through the calendar? Obviously, there's a bit of mix of super speedways and the likes of the sort of, normal NASCAR 1.5 mile tracks.
In terms of what races I'm looking forward to?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, would you rather have the sort of smaller tracks or would you rather have the big super speedways?
I'm looking forward to Richmond. I mostly do short track racing myself on ovals, so I'm hoping I'll be good at Richmond. And then Pocono. Pocono is my favorite oval track.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Pocono as well, to be fair. And obviously, if Las Vegas is anything to go by, then you'll be a threat, I'm sure, when it comes round to those specific races, as well as obviously all the other races as well. Well, Saoirse, thank you very much for jumping into the commentary box and letting us know how those last 3 laps went for you, and obviously the reasons why they didn't quite go to plan. Is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
I'd love to give a shout out to Emily Howe from Prismatic for doing the setup. It was an amazing setup, brilliant, and everyone from Prismatic Motorsports. I would never have had the opportunity to run in this series without them. They've been amazing and so supportive.
Great stuff. Well, big up Prismatic. And yeah, thank you very much, Saoirse, for coming in. Hopefully we'll speak to you next week.
Thank you for having me.
And that was Fitzpatrick there, DJ. And I'd say a fairly honest review of the last 3 laps.
Very honest indeed. And we've got to be honest that it's about time for us to wrap up, sadly, here for the WSL NASCAR Series EU. My name is DJ Clark, and on behalf of Chuck Oliphant and our director, broadcaster behind the scenes, David Christie, we would like to thank you for joining us here today, and also like to thank you for our sponsors, SIM3D, Race Anywhere, and Go for the Gap. We will be back same time next week as we head to the Charlotte Oval and get ready for that one, because it is going to be just as electric as it was out here today. But until then, my name is DJ Clark, and until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.